Tonight, airlifted to hospital. A man is attacked by a bear west of Fort Nelson. Teenager charged. A Grand Prairie taxicab driver is stabbed. And historic drought is now the worst it's been since 1938. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. We begin tonight with a man taken to hospital after being attacked by a grizzly bear. It happened in a remote location about 110 kilometers west of Fort Nelson. The grizzly bit and scratched the man that was part of a group working in the area. The bear was with its two cubs when it charged the man. The individual was airlifted to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The BC Conservation Officer Service says the bear will not be captured because the attack was being deemed to be defensive as the grizzly bear was protecting her cubs. The man has since been released from hospital. A teenager in Grand Prairie is facing charges after a cab driver was allegedly stabbed. Mounties say the driver was stabbed in the stomach in the early morning hours of June the 28th. The victim was rushed to hospital in serious condition, but has since been released. After a number of search warrants, the 17-year-old was arrested on Saturday. The teen has been charged with aggravated assault and possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. He was released from custody pending his next court appearance. A new free drop-in clinic is coming to Fort St. John to serve those with low incomes. The Fort St. John Women's Resource Society is launching the new program tomorrow. The service will be available every Tuesday for households earning $42,000 or less per year. The clinic is led by a nurse practitioner from Northern Health's primary care clinic. It offers non-urgent medical care, health advice, and treatment for minor illnesses and injuries, as well as women's health services. The initiative is the first of its kind in northern BC. According to Environment Canada, parts of northeast BC has seen even more record-setting drought conditions to start the summer.
Certainly what we've seen up in Fort Nelson in particular, which is exacerbated by a dry spring. So we had the driest spring ever, and records go back to 1938.
The Fort Nelson region has been getting progressively worse over the past 3 years. And according to the province, Fort Nelson currently sits at drought level 5, the highest reading on the scale. Loney says the area may see more frequent rain in the coming weeks, and he calls it good news for the region. Now in the Peace region, Loney says the drought isn't as bad because some of the precipitation that happened in June. The drought level before June was listed at 4. It's currently ranked at drought level 3. But the forecast shows drier conditions for the Peace region as the summer continues. And despite the giant June on record, the campfire ban for the Fort Nelson area has been rescinded. As of noon today, Category 1 campfires are once again being allowed. Although fire danger ratings have dropped due to recent rainfall and cooler temperatures, the public is being reminded to still exercise caution. The BC Wildfire Service says avoiding having a campfire when it's windy and choose a proper fire pit or make a ring of rocks at least 3 meters from any trees, shrubs, or structures. A Category 2 and 3 fire ban remains in effect for the entire Prince George Fire Centre. And the BC Wildfire Service says the Pocket Knife Creek wildfire is now listed as being under control. It says the area restriction was removed on Saturday. The fire is located approximately 150 kilometers north of Fort St. John, and it's not expected to further spread. The size of the blaze has reached more than 150,000 hectares. The Wildfire Service says the suspected cause is lightning. There are currently 82 active wildfires in BC, 8 of them starting in the past 24 hours. Well, some flights have resumed in Kelowna after a wildfire which had prompted evacuations has now stopped spreading. The Wheeling Creek fire has come dangerously close to some homes. More concerning now is the situation in the town of Lytton. A wildfire there has grown to more than 2 square kilometers. It started after an RCMP vehicle lost a wheel and sparked a fire that spread quickly. Well, 27 more Albertans have confirmed cases of the measles, and that brings the provincial total to more than 1,200. The majority of the new cases are in the North Zone. Health officials continue to encourage Albertans to ensure they've received 2 doses of the MMR vaccine. Albertans who aren't fully vaccinated are advised to be extra careful if they're heading to the Stampede in Calgary this summer. The highly contagious virus can linger in the air for a couple of hours after an infected person has left the area. We're learning about the death of the serial killer Robert Pickton while he was in a prison in Quebec. And a warning, the details of this investigation into the attack are graphic. The Correctional Service of Canada says on May the 19th, 2024, Pickton was attacked by another inmate. It happened while medication was being handed out in Pickton's unit. Guards were able to stop it, but moments later, the same attacker grabbed a broomstick, broke the handle, and thrust it into Pickton's face. Pickton, who was found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder in 2007, was rushed to hospital, but he was pronounced dead nearly 2 weeks later. No criminal charges have been laid in Pickton's death. The report noted inmates had access to cleaning supplies that could have been used as weapons, but the institution says it has now taken steps to remedy that issue. Today, the premiers of Alberta and Ontario signed a memorandum to boost trade and cooperation between their two provinces. But as CTV's Rachel Aiello reports, as more interprovincial trade barriers are coming down, there is some skepticism over whether these agreements are the answer.
Free trade being one within all the provinces that will add over $200 billion to our economy.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford touting the potential of Canada-wide free trade after signing new agreements with Alberta to advance energy infrastructure and support the automotive and alcohol manufacturing sectors.
Today's signing marks an historic partnership founded in a mutual ambition to reach the full potential of our provinces.
This deal is the latest in a series of policy moves made in recent months to try and limit the damage caused by U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war by breaking down interprovincial trade barriers. Though a new report out today from a left-leaning think tank argues that the notion that resolving such issues could lead to more than $200 billion in economic gains is pure fantasy. One of its authors cautions the cost of cutting this red tape could result in a race to the bottom for safety and service standards.
I think Canadians need to be wary, and they need to be cautious anytime they see a government saying they're doing something to respond to a national emergency, right?
Meanwhile, one of the authors of the report where the $200 billion estimate originated acknowledged politicians have overstated his estimate.
It's also an estimate that we put forward that represents the maximum possible gains from fully eliminating all of the internal trade barriers in Canada, which so far no government has put anything on the table to actually achieve that objective.
Today, Internal Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland's office said the federal government knows there's more work to do. That work will continue tomorrow when the ministers responsible for internal trade from each province and territory meet in Quebec City. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
We're getting a new snapshot of rising food costs across Canada, especially when it comes to putting meat on your plate. A new global food index has been tracking climbing costs. It's also looking into the reasons why some staples are taking a bigger bite out of your budget. CTV's Camille Caramelli reports.
This Toronto butcher shop,
I'll set my friend,
bustling on this Sunday.
This is such a treat today.
A rare treat because meat for some has become a luxury.
Definitely meat is more.
Just listen to how much some of these meats,
something like oxtail,
have gone up in price.
Prices have practically tripled for myself.
The owner of this shop, Marlon Rosenbaum, feeling a bit raw about how much he's had to dish out for some cuts.
It's a tough time for small businesses. Everything costs more than it ever did before.
Meat, one of multiple items to see a price jump globally this month. The other items, vegetable oil and dairy.
Meat now hitting an all-time high, up 2% since May, but rising more than 6% since last June. Vegetable oil also seeing a 2% increase since May, up 18% from last year. And although dairy only saw a 0.5% increase since May, it's jumped up 20% since this time last year.
We're seeing reduced production because there are fewer cows around. We've seen dry weather in North America in the last couple of years there's been less feed available.
Less feed available to raise cows not only puts the price of dairy on the rise, it means with a surging population, there's less to go around.
The world will be short 5 times Canada's national production by 2030. So that pressure will only increase.
But these global food prices don't always reflect Canadian food prices. Take vegetable oil, for example, surging in price globally, but in Canada, the cost has actually gone down.
We have excess supply of canola oil in this country, which is the predominant oil that we use.
All in all, people will still have to pay more for most foods.
So what gives you hope to keep going?
I think just trying to keep in mind that good quality meat is something that there will always be a demand for.
Hoping that for these customers, locally sourced meat will still be a cut above the rest. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
A ceasefire deal to end the war between Israel and Hamas is on the table. U.S. President Trump met with his Israeli counterpart in Washington today to discuss it.
I think there's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the week.
Israel has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza and has warned Hamas to accept it. Hamas has expressed support for the framework of the deal, but it says there are amendments it wants before accepting. Under the current proposal, Hamas would release 10 living hostages in 2 phases, with Israel releasing Palestinian prisoners. Israeli and Hamas officials met in Qatar today for indirect talks. Israel's prime minister says his delegation has instructions to achieve a ceasefire deal under the conditions that Israel has accepted. And the U.S. president sent off letters today to several countries, including 2 major trading partners. Donald Trump posted almost identical letters addressed to the leaders of Japan and South Korea. It was to inform them of a 25% tariff starting on August the 1st. More letters in this stepped-up trade war will go to countries that haven't negotiated trade deals with the U.S. Canada was not included in those global tariffs and is trying to get a trade deal done with the U.S. by July the 21st. The U.S. Department of Justice says there's no evidence accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein kept any sort of client list or that he was murdered.
An exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death, and they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. They committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that.
The Department of Justice also says it is not planning to release any new documents related to the matter. For years, right-wing media figures have suggested the government is hiding secrets relating to Epstein. During a feud with the president, billionaire Elon Musk accused Donald Trump of appearing in those supposed files. Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi said this spring, suggesting that a document involving a list of clients was sitting on her desk. Now the Department of Justice says that list never existed. The department has also released hours of jailhouse security footage that shows no one entering Epstein's jail cell on the day he died. An urgent search is underway for survivors in Texas after more than 90 people have been killed in deadly flash flooding, and that includes dozens of children and their counselors at a Christian summer camp. CTV's Adrien Goel has more on the tragedy and criticisms over Washington's response.
As the search for survivors intensifies, the full scale of this deadly disaster is coming into focus. This footage shares a glimpse of just some of the 850 life and death high water rescues that took place. Hundreds of state and federal first responders and more than a dozen canine units are on the ground, including volunteers on foot and horseback.
If it was my babies, I'd want somebody looking, so that's why I'm here.
Dozens of children have been confirmed dead, with another 10 campers and 1 counselor, as of this morning, still missing from Camp Mystic, a Christian girls' camp.
I've lost near friends, best friends, my boss, my godchildren, my house, my car.
The camp, perched along the Guadalupe River, saw floodwaters rise 8 meters in just 45 minutes. 2 hours north, in Kingsland, Texas, this time-lapse shows just how quickly floodwaters rose.
You know that your child is going to be swimming and canoes and horseback riding and doing archery and making lifetime friends. And then suddenly it turns to tragedy.
With the National Weather Service saying their flood warnings were timely and accurate, questions about weather alerts reached those most at risk remain, with the mayor of Kerrville, Texas, admitting he never received one.
Everyone here, if we could have warned them, we would have done so. And we didn't even have a warning. We did not know.
The city manager of Kerrville asked today why an evacuation order wasn't issued.
It's very tough to make those calls because what we also don't want to do is cry wolf.
An answer that will bring little comfort to those who've lost so much.
With the U.S. president signing a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, Texas, Federal Emergency Management Agency resources have been deployed as ongoing discussions to close down FEMA are still taking place, according to a White House spokesperson today. Adrien Goel, CTV News, Washington.
All right, please do stay tuned. Noah Bell will be right back with weather, and he's got a pretty decent looking forecast for you. Stay tuned.